Hello everyone, I'm NVL and welcome to my video game pickups for the month of April. Hardware first. Now the first item I picked up this month is the Cyber Gadget Retro Freak. Now this is an awesome emulation console. It does 12 different retro gaming systems right out of the box. Now I've already done an unboxing and a full review video for this, so check that out. This has saved me a ton of space in my gaming setup. I don't have to have a ton of consoles set up at once. The great thing about this system is you can record from it by HDMI, so all the cartridge games I picked up this month will be recorded from the Cyber Gadget Retro Freak. Great piece of hardware, really glad to pick that up. The next thing I picked up this month is the Sega Mega Drive Master System Converter. Now this is designed for the Sega Mega Drive Model 1, but it also works on the Cyber Gadget Retro Freak to allow you to rip your ROMs from your Master System games. Now the good thing about the Model 1 Master System Converter is it accepts Sega cards and cartridges, which my Sega Master System Model 2 doesn't. Now I got a great deal with this for under £30, and this normally goes for £30 to £40. I got the Master System Converter and free games, so I'm really glad to pick this up. I've been looking for one for a while, so that's awesome. Now I picked up some controllers at a car boot sale, and this first controller is really awesome. Check this out. It's a PlayStation 1 fight stick, and it's modeled to look like an actual PlayStation 1 console, the first model. This fight stick is actually really good. I've been using it on a couple of space shooter games. The analog stick is actually micro switched, which is really awesome, and the buttons are really large and nice to press. Really glad I picked this up. I paid £4 for this, which has got to be an awesome deal, because I've seen this listed elsewhere for up to £40. It was really big and the guy just wanted to get rid of it, so that's awesome. The next controller I picked up is a Logic-free controller for the Nintendo 64. Now I love the Nintendo 64 controllers, but I know some people have issues with them, so I actually got this for multiplayer when I have people around and they just don't like the Nintendo controller. It's a pretty decent controller. I paid £5 for it. I've seen them go for about 10 or 11. Not a great deal, but nevertheless I'm pretty glad to pick that up. Next up is the Microsoft Sidewinder joystick. Now I paid £5 for this. I'm not sure if that's a great deal or not. I got it at a charity shop, and I was looking for a joystick for my PC that uses USB for emulating old retro games like the Commodore 64. It's not a bad controller. I'm not thrilled with the button placement, but I have been looking for a PC joystick, so it's cool to finally find one. I also picked up a selection of N64 memory packs for just £1 each, which seems like a very good deal. There is a Joytech memory pack. There is an Electronic Boutique memory pack, which is really cool because that company went out of business and I used to buy games from them a lot. And a HMV Vibra Pack 256, which is a memory card and vibration pack in one. Now these are really cool and a very good price, and I have been looking to pick up an N64 memory pack because a lot of the Nintendo 64 early games couldn't save onto the cartridge itself. You had to use a memory pack. Examples of this are Turok Dinosaur Hunter, so I can finally save my game there, assuming the batteries in these things haven't run out, which I think they may have done because they only last for about a year. Now I also picked up this Roxio GameCap HD Pro to record my gameplay footage via HDMI. Now I got this for just £20 on eBay, which is an amazing deal. It was so cheap because the power LED is damaged and slightly recessed into the system, but it still works fine. This is just a temporary replacement. I really want to get you guys the best quality video footage for these pickup videos possible, so the Roxio GameCap HD Pro will be my replacement until my Elgato Game Capture has been repaired. Now finally, onto the games. Those cartridges I got with the Master System Converter were Choplifter. Now, Choplifter is a military-themed shooter game where you save prisoners of war with your helicopter. I will say the controls for this game are a little bit awkward as one button turns and one button fires. You often find yourself facing the opposite direction that you want to fire. This has been ported to a ton of different systems. The controls do take a little bit of time to get used to, but I technically didn't pay anything for it because it came with the Master System Converter. The next game I got is two games, and it is Hang On and Astro Warrior. Hang On is a motorbike racing game, and it actually looks very impressive for the Master System, but the real reason I'm excited about this game is Astro Warrior, which is an awesome space shooter, and I really love my space shooters. This game is really awesome, so I'm really glad that I got this. The final game that I got with my Master System Converter is Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, being a Master System port of a Mega Drive game, this is strictly worse than the Mega Drive Sonic game. It is still impressive that they got all of the game onto the Master System, but I think I'll still stick to the Genesis Mega Drive version. Next up, on to the Famicom games. Now, because I have the Retro Freak, I can play Japanese imports, which is awesome. The first Famicom game I picked up is Argos. Now, you guys know I love my shooter games, and what's cool about this is the instructions are actually on the back of the cartridge, which is really handy. They are, however, of course, in Japanese. Now, this is an awesome game. I didn't have access to any Famicom games prior to getting my Retro Freak, so it's really awesome to play these games. Next up is Exed Exes. Another Famicom shooter game. You guys know I love my shooters, and this is no exception. Another sweet game that I'm glad to play for the first time. Next up, Space Hunter. Now this is really cool, another Japanese exclusive like the previous titles. This is similar to Metroid in terms of gameplay. You drop these kind of horizontal exploding bombs to hurt your enemies. There's lots of places to explore, lots of boss battles to find. It's really cool, so I'm glad to give that a go. And next up, Star Force, a space shooter, a really cool space shooter at that. There's nothing I love more than blasting aliens in my spaceship. And when you buy Star Force, what else could you buy other than Super Star Force to go with it? Super Star Force, a space shooter, sequel, of course, to Star Force, another awesome game for the Famicom. And finally, for the Famicom, I picked up Super Xevious. And just quickly, I want to say how awesome this little plastic case this game comes in. Look at that, look at how tidy and nice looking that is. And the cartridge is gold. How awesome is that? Now, one of the annoying things about Nintendo games is all the way up to Nintendo 64 they came in cardboard cases, which is awkward when you're trying to preserve them. This is super cute. It looks like a shrunken Mega Drive case. Not all Famicom games came in these cases, but some did. Super Xevious is a souped up version of Xevious that we never got over here. It's really cool, a little bit hard, but it's an awesome game nonetheless. Now, with the Famicom covered, let's move to a system we're all familiar with, the NES. And I picked up a couple of games. This first game is Hydlide. Now, this game was not released in the PAL region, and if you believe the angry video game nerd, that is for good reason. I don't believe this game is as bad as people say it is. Its redeeming quality is that you can pick it up very cheap. A top-down adventure game, similar in gameplay to Zelda. I actually don't think this is that bad. There you go. The next game I picked up is Kickle Cubicle. Now, I got this game at Faceless Monkey in Truro. It's a puzzle game, and it's really weird and it's really cute, and you can see that in the gameplay footage. Now, on to a game I picked up for the Super Famicom, Nekketsu Tairiku Burning Heroes. No idea if that's how you pronounce that, but there you go. Now, this is a really cool RPG that was never released over here. The gameplay footage you will be seeing from the Retro Freak will be in Japanese, but I can add an English patch to this to play it in English. Really cool to pick this up. This is the sort of thing I will be looking for now I can play import games now that I have the Retro Freak. Awesome. Moving on to the Mega Drive, I picked up a bunch of games. I was fortunate enough to find all of these locally through a combination of a local record shop and a car boot sale. The first I picked up is Dungeons and Dragons, Warriors of the Eternal Sun. Now, this is a top-down D&D game. The combat in this game is turn-based and tactical. Really cool looking game, really sweet to pick this up, and I didn't pay very much for it at all. The next Mega Drive game I got is James Pond 3, Operation Starfish. Now, this is a platform game, really colourful and really cool looking, but I can't tell you much more about it because I haven't played any James Pond games prior to this. Nevertheless, I paid £3 for this at a car boot sale, which seemed like a good deal at the time. Next up, Sonic and Knuckles. Now, I also got this at a car boot sale for only £3, which is actually a very good deal. The only problem with this is that the cartridge door is broken, but that doesn't affect using it in any way. What's awesome about this game is you can use it as a pass-through cartridge, and if you put in Sonic 2 or Sonic 3, you get enhanced levels or different options to play those games. A very interesting idea and a very unique game for the Mega Drive. Next up, Galaxy Force 2. Now, this game looks awesome. It really takes advantage of what the Mega Drive can do. I really love space shooters. This game reminds me a lot of Space Harrier. Really awesome. I found this at a local record shop called Acorn Records in Truro. Really sweet to pick this up. Next up, Last Battle. This game is a side-scrolling beat-em-up. Now, I do have a bit of a weakness for beat-em-up games. However, this game does have a few detractors. It is only one player and it kind of sucks. It reminds me of the game Vigilante, which I also don't like very much. finally for the Mega Drive, Space Harrier II. Now this looks awesome on the Sega Mega Drive. This is a very beautiful looking game, somewhat psychedelic, and it really pushes the Mega Drive to the limits of what it can do. Now I picked up a bunch of Game Boy games. First up for the original Game Boy is Bomberman GB. I picked this game up from Faceless Monkey in Truro, and this is actually, I believe, the second game Bomberman was in on the Game Boy. The first was a Wario game. Now this cartridge is a little beat up, but it still plays perfectly fine, and it's a really awesome game, and it looks great on the big screen on the Retro Freak. Next up is Metroid 2. Now this is an original Game Boy game, but if you play this game in a Game Boy Color or a Super Game Boy, you will get a full color palette. Now the great thing about the Retro Freak, which I recorded this with, is it has access to those enhancements. This game looks awesome on the big screen and in HDMI. Really cool game, really glad to pick this up. Now for the Game Boy Advanced, I got a couple of games. First up, Banjo Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge. Now I was a bit dubious about how a 3D platformer would look on the Game Boy Advance, especially when you blow it up to the big screen with the Retro Freak, but it actually looks great. Banjo-Kazooie looks fantastic on the Game Boy Advance. Really sweet looking game, really glad to pick this up. Next up, Sigma Star Saga for the Game Boy Advance. Now this game is awesome. It fuses two different types of gameplay elements. The first is RPG with a top-down perspective. The second is side-scrolling shoot-em-up. When you get into a random battle or at certain stages of the game, you'll be playing the game as a side-scrolling space shooter. Now this game is awesome. It looks fantastic. It is a little bit hard, but I can't wait to give this some time and really get through it. Awesome. The next game I picked up is for the PC Engine, and it is War of the Dead. Now it's really cool that I can finally play PC Engine games as well as TurboGrafx games on the CyberGadget Retro Freak. Now similar to Sigma Star Saga, this is a top-down RPG, and when you get into a random battle on the main world map, you will then go into a side-scrolling shooter. This being a run-and-gun shooter rather than space-themed. A really cool game, a really interesting game. I'm probably going to have to get an English patch for this, but it's still really awesome to pick this up and to be able to play PC Engine games. Next up for the PlayStation 1, N2O. Now this is a 3D tunnel runner. Now here's how it describes itself. Take a deep breath and prepare to engage in an electrified tsunami of light, colour and fortified funk. This game certainly looks really interesting, and that's what drew me towards it. I picked this up in Big E's games and DVDs at St. Austell. Really cool to pick that up. Now for the Sega Dreamcast, I picked up a game I've been looking for quite some time, and that game is Shenmue. Now this game actually came in 2 jewel cases, which makes it look kind of confusing, but this would normally come with a cardboard outer case that binds them together. That's the only thing I'm missing here. Really great condition, really glad to pick this up. Shenmue is a really cool game, way ahead of its time. One of the first games to have a really in-depth open world, characters running through daily routines. The game also features a day and night system, variable weather effects, which is why when I captured the gameplay footage, it was raining and no one was in town. The in-game arcade also features full arcade games, including Space Harrier. In the first part of this game, you're kind of like a detective going around trying to find out information about the people that killed your father. There is fighting combat in this game, similar to Virtua Fighter, which is the world that this game is built upon. Really cool, I've been looking for this for quite some time, really glad to pick this up finally, Shenmue for the Dreamcast. The next game I picked up for the Sega Dreamcast is Toy Commander. A really interesting game, a really fun game for multiplayer. It kind of reminds me of Toy Story. Vehicle combat on the ground in there, lots of explosions, lots of fun stuff. A co-worker has been bugging me to pick this up for quite some time, so I finally got myself a copy of Toy Commander. Moving on to the PlayStation 2, the first game I picked up is Dragon Quest: Journey of the Cursed King. Now this is another game I've been looking for, and it's in awesome shape except for the fact that it has some sticker damage on the insert of the spine. Other than that, it's really great. This game looks really interesting, really colourful and really cool. So that's Dragon Quest: Journey of the Cursed King. Next up, EOE Eve of Extinction. What a really weird title for this game. I don't know why they didn't just call this EOE or Eve of Extinction. This is a 3D beat-em-up game. Now you don't get enough of this type of game after the 16-bit era, so I'm really excited to give this game a go, and that's EOE Eve of Extinction for the PlayStation 2. Next up, GSurfers. Now I will be honest, this game looks pretty bad, like a poor man's version of Wipeout. This game is a PlayStation 2 exclusive. I picked it up for £1 in a charity shop, and there's not much else I can say about this. I don't expect this to be good in any way, shape or fashion. GSurfers for the PlayStation 2. Next up, Headhunter Redemption. Sequel to the critically acclaimed Headhunter, a third-person shooter with stealth elements. I picked this up for less than £1. I don't expect much from it, but PlayStation World describes this game as superior action adventure. So it does look pretty cool. Headhunter Redemption for the PlayStation 2. Next up is Malice for the PlayStation 2. This is a fun looking platform game. I really dig the art style in this game. It reminds me of Banjo Kazooie. It says on the back, guide Malice through 22 levels of elemental chaos. So there's many stages to keep you interested in this game. Malice on the PlayStation 2. Next up, Project Zero 2 Crimson Butterfly. Now, the Project Zero games are known in the rest of the world as Fatal Frame. This is of course a sequel to the first game, which I picked up on the original Xbox. A very cool survival horror game utilising a camera. The camera is the only way that you can see or damage the ghosts in this game. Very cool. I will get to this after I've played the original all the way through. Finally, for the PlayStation 2, Summoner 2. Now, this is the sequel to the original Summoner game, which I already have, and that's the only reason I picked this up, because I don't remember that game being too remarkable. But I got this for less than £1, so I can't complain. Summoner 2 for the PlayStation 2. Next up, for the PC, I picked up a couple of games. First up, Neuro Hunter. Now, because this is an old PC game, it wouldn't work on my main computer, but it would work on my XP laptop. Unfortunately, that meant I had to capture the gameplay footage in its lower settings in order to not lose any frames. So this game does look a bit better than what you're seeing. With that said, I feel like when you start this game you are drastically under-equipped, taking on a lot of monsters with just a knife. But there you go, Neuro Hunter for the PC. This next game I found incredibly enjoyable, and dare I say slightly therapeutic. Postal II for the PC. Now, this game is really fun and really amusing, a lot of dark humour, and to be honest, I'm not really sure what you're supposed to do in this game, because as soon as I started it, I just went around killing people. I grabbed a shotgun, I grabbed a shovel, and I just took people out. So there you go, Postal II, a really enjoyable, if not quite dark game. For the original Xbox, I picked up Dead or Alive Ultimate. Now, I picked this up for the bargain price of £1 at a car boot sale. Dead or Alive Ultimate is Dead or Alive 1 and 2 on the original Xbox. Now, this game is also available in a collector's edition, which I have been looking for, but I'm very okay with picking up this version for just £1. Next up, Splinter Cell. Now, I also picked this up for just £1 at a car boot sale. Now, this game had a regular cover, but it had the classic discs inside, which meant it had a bonus disc with extra missions and videos on it. Splinter Cell from the late Tom Clancy is a stealth game. You play as Sam Fisher, a field operative of a secretive NSA sub-agency. But all you really need to know about this game is you'll be using a silenced pistol and a sniper rifle frequently. Next up, Taito Legends. Now, I'm clearly missing the inlay for this game, but I do have the manual and all of the inserts that come with it, which is why I wanted to keep them all together. Now, this game is obviously not complete, but I'm okay with the condition I received it in because I only paid £2 for it, which was a really good deal. I picked this up at Console Connections in Truro. Loads of classic Taito games in this collection. And finally, for the original Xbox, Without Warning. Now, I picked this up with the others at a car boot sale for just £1. I don't expect this to be that great, but for the price I paid for it, you can't really complain. It's a shooter game, there are explosions, and I do like shooting stuff and making stuff explode. So there you go, Without Warning for the original Xbox. Now, for the Nintendo Wii, I picked up some cool games. First up, Final Fantasy Fables Chocobo's Dungeon. Now, this game describes itself as a quest to remember, and it is super cute. I was very glad to find this, and I got it at a very good price, and I will pick up anything Final Fantasy related. So there you go, Final Fantasy Fables Chocobo's Dungeon for Nintendo Wii. Next up, Rygar, the Battle of Argos. That's right, nobody is taking Argos away from me. Mine! So I had no idea that there was a 3D Rygar game, and this looks really awesome, and it was localized by Rising Star Games, so I'm pretty sure this is going to be sweet. Next up, Sin and Punishment, Successor of the Skies. Now, the original Sin and Punishment game didn't make it outside of Japan, that's why it's really cool that we get to play this one. It is an on-the-rail shooter game that uses the Wii controls, and you can use the Wii Zapper, the GameCube controller, or the classic controller, whatever you feel like using. I love anything that uses a Wii Zapper. This has 2-player cooperative mode. I picked this up from Faceless Monkey in Truro. Really cool game, and this is something really neat about it, which you wouldn't know from looking on the inside because you can't see at all. So something really cool and hidden is that on the inside of the insert there is some sweet looking artwork that you'd never know unless you took it outside of the case because there's no way to tell. So that's really awesome, and this looks really cool. Finally, for the Nintendo Wii, Tenchu Shadow Assassins. Now, this is a stealth assassination game. I'm not sure how this will play using the Wii controls. I feel like the slightest movement might get you in trouble. It doesn't seem like there's any option to use a traditional controller for this game, but I do like the Tenchu games, so I am excited to give this a go. Finally, for the Xbox 360, I picked up Blue Dragon. Now, this game is really awesome. It is an Xbox 360 exclusive. It's the kind of roleplay game that I like. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and the combat is turn-based, which I really enjoy. The official Xbox 360 magazine quotes this as a must-buy, one of the best adventures on the Xbox 360, giving it 9 out of 10. This game is very good, and I've been looking for it for quite some time, so I'm very glad to finally pick it up. Next up is Hunted, the Demon's Forge. Now, this game is actually quite good, which is surprising because I didn't know anything about it when I picked it up. This is a third-person fantasy 3D dungeon crawling game. It also features split-screen cooperative play, which is really cool. So Bethesda really hit it out of the park with this game, probably a hidden gem on the Xbox 360. Next up is Infinite Undiscovery. Now, this game is from the creators of Star Ocean and Valkyrie Profile, and it is an epic hack-and-slash RPG. Although I did find myself kind of thrown into the thick of it at the start of this game, and I found the combat a little unintuitive. Having said that, this game does look really nice, the art style is really cool, and it's still great to pick up this game, Infinite Undiscovery. Now, the last game I picked up is, ironically, The Last Remnant. A very visually stunning looking RPG, but I did find myself sitting through a bunch of FMVs at the start of this game, and I didn't find the combat to be particularly to my liking. The combat is turn-based. You select all of your attacks and all of your moves in one go, and then you watch it all play out at once. But at that point, you do kind of feel like you're not doing anything, you're just sitting back and watching the game play itself. Having said that, a strikingly beautiful looking RPG for the Xbox 360, The Last Remnant. So there you go, those are all of my video game pickups for the month of April. Thank you for watching, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.